Okay, I'm Katie Jagger, Saltwater Seeds. We are a small seed company on the Olympic Peninsula. We have 3 different sites. One is in Chimacum, and 2 in Sequim, a larger one in Sequim, and a new one at my house. It's very small. We're on about 2 acres. We're tiny, tiny, tiny. We grow roughly 150 different varieties, which are for sale at garden centers and grocery stores in the Puget Sound. We're currently looking for more accounts. I'm excited because I think we'll be able to offer seeds for sale outside of Olympia and Yelm. This is what our seed rack looks like, and that's what our seed packets look like. So we have 3 sites. 2 of the sites are certified organic. One of them is in transition, the one at my house. It's useful having 3 sites because we are a seed company growing all of the seeds that we sell. A lot of seed companies buy seeds from contract producers and package them and sell them. It's very unusual for a seed company to produce all of the seeds that it sells, which is what we do. Someday that might shift, but for now, that's what we're up to. It's very fun. I love it. I absolutely love doing it. This is a picture of our bigger field in Sequim. I don't have a picture of the site at my house. It's very small. It's mostly just an isolation for Brassica oleracea, poppies, cosmos, betas, other crops that really require isolation. We don't grow very much there, but it's super helpful having that extra isolation. So our field in Sequim is full tillage, normal agriculture. We're working on transitioning that field to less tillage or no tillage, but the soil's really tight. So we're gonna try to spread a bunch of compost to hopefully loosen the soil up a little bit to make the no-till situation work. There's also a lot of wind there. I'm not sure how it'll work. We do no-till using landscape fabric primarily. If anyone's curious about that, talk to me about it later. It's effective, I find. This is our site in Chimacum. It's managed completely no-till, mostly because the soil is suited to it. It's on a slope, which means that tractor cultivation would be impossible. And we found it to work really well there. It's a beautiful site. It's a semi-amu muck soil, high organic matter. The site in Sequim is a lower organic matter silt loam soil. And then the site at my house is a rocky, sandy loam, which is useful having 3 different sites with 3 different soil types because it allows us to select varieties for multiple different growing systems or growing sites. If any of you have ever farmed in multiple places, you'll know that farming in one site is completely different from farming in another site. And it's important as seed producers to be able to select for all of those different soil conditions. Okay, I wanted to start with a little bit of an overview or some context of where we're coming from. Driftless Seed Supply, a buddy of mine runs this company in the Midwest. They're a small regional seed company, relatively new. For the most part, they source their seeds from regional Midwest producers, and they're marketing to other Midwestern producers. But normally, you're a farmer, you're looking at buying some seeds. You go online, probably to Johnny's or Fedco or High Mowing or Adaptive, hopefully, or Uprising, hopefully. And you pick out what seeds you're gonna buy. If you're buying from Uprising or Deep Harvest or Adaptive or Driftless or Saltwater seeds, you can be pretty certain that those seeds are gonna be well adapted to your region if you're growing close to those companies. If you're buying from a larger seed company, and Driftless, in wanting to offer a really top-notch carrot variety, buys Bolero carrot seed from Johnny's. So Driftless will buy seed from another seed wholesaler Johnny's in turn is buying that seed from Vilmoran, which was recently merged with, which is a large-scale breeding company. I'm not sure where they're based out of. And then these are the other large-scale breeding companies that I'm familiar with. Reichschwan, Vilmoran, Bejo. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing these right. Correct me if I'm wrong. Large-scale breeding companies that grow and market seed worldwide. And they, in turn, are contracting the production of that seed with seed growers all over the world. We do have a large-scale seed production region in Oregon and Washington. In both places, the Willamette Valley is a world-class region for seed production, as is the Skagit Valley. And where we are on the Olympic Peninsula is a spinach, beta, and cauliflower producing region. So, driftless, I don't know where Bolero is grown. It's possible that somebody at this conference knows. It's possible, I know that there is a lot of carrot seed production in eastern Washington and eastern Oregon where there aren't issues with outcrossing with Queen Anne's lace. This is all to say that when you buy a seed packet from a seed company, that seed could be sourced from who knows where. And it's definitely not adapted to your farm. It's definitely not adapted. It's possible that it's adapted to your region just because we do live close to seed production regions. If you're in the Willamette Valley, it's very possible that some of these varieties are adapted to the Willamette Valley or to Skagit, or if you're growing cauliflower and spinach and betas, it's possible that you might happen to buy some seed that was produced in your region. Okay, and then here's, some of you might be familiar with this. So these large-scale seed companies might not share the same values that you share as an organic farmer, or they might just be producing in systems that are very different from the production system that you're in. As you can see, the red ones are chemical companies, the blue ones are seed companies. So a lot of and I think it's mostly commodity crops, a lot of the commodity crop seed businesses are owned by chemical companies. There are some, and I see Vilmoran. You can't really read that, but that's Vilmoran. That's the company that offers Bolero, and that company is not owned by a chemical company. That's great. Also, I did not see any of those other those breeding companies that do breeding work on vegetable seeds on this chart. So it seems, draw what conclusions you will. I'm no expert in this, but it's just to say that there is a lot of chemical company control over the seed industry. And seed production, when you're growing seeds, the seeds are in the ground much longer than they are for a head of lettuce. You know, you grow the head of lettuce, 2 months later, it's out of the ground. When you're growing lettuce seed, you grow the head of lettuce and then you let it bolt, it flowers, it sets seed, the seed dries down on the stalk, you harvest it. It's in the ground much longer. To control weeds, to control diseases in those situations, it's very common for seed producers to spray pesticides and herbicides. Even certified organic pesticides and herbicides to control, or fungicides more likely in lettuce seed production. Which is to say that there is more risk for contamination of chemicals in seed production than, I don't know if I should say that. Anyways, okay, where was I? Oh, okay, certified organic. Why are we certified organic? I feel like I was getting somewhere with that. Chemical companies, seed companies. Anyways, why are we certified? We are certified. We started to be certified because at the very beginning of our business, we had no market for seed packets, and we needed to sell on contract to other seed companies. We wanted to work with Deep Harvest, Uprising, Adaptive, and High Mowing. These are companies that only sell organic seed. We wanted to work with them because they pay better prices for contract seed than the other companies that are out there. Fruition is another great one. So we needed to be certified in order to be able to sell seed to these companies. Yeah, so, and then organic means something. It's regulated. I'm definitely no expert in all of the organic rules. They shift. We do our best to keep up with what's going on. We depend heavily on the good folks at the WSDA to help us understand what ways the rules have shifted year to year. But it does mean something. I think that's the main point, is that there are rules that are made, they're enforced to the best of the certifier's ability, and it means something. Organic farmers have to buy organic seed unless it's not commercially available. That opens up a huge market for organic seed. That can also be tricky for someone who's doing breeding work. Sometimes the best variety for your situation is going to be a variety that your neighbor produced. Not sure what happened there. Oh, okay. I probably just didn't touch it for long enough. It might be a variety that your neighbor produced. Ooh. That's not certified organic. And I do think it makes sense. And I think that if there is a locally adapted strain, I'm looking at you. This is, my inspector is here. I think that if there is a locally adapted strain of a variety that is commonly available, that a breeding company can use that. I'm asking.
Basically, if that variety is not available in organic form.
Okay, but what if the variety is available in an organic form, but the most suited strain is not available organic, and I am an organic seed producer who will take that non-certified seed, produce it, and then it becomes certified organic. Is there a route for that?
To have that non-organic trial seed, so to speak, become an organic seed?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So for someone like me, who I would say is like a amateur plant breeder, but also is certified organic, I'm able to take conventional seed of a variety that is commercially available organically, produce the seed, and then transition it to being organic, with some caveats. It cannot be genetically modified. I don't know about CRISPR, what's that called? Gene editing. I don't know about gene editing. If a seed has been, well, there are hybrid brassica varieties that are definitely certified organic, so it sounds like gene editing is allowed in organic production.
Hybrid doesn't necessarily mean gene editing, though.
A lot of hybrid seeds have cytoplasmic male sterility, which is induced using, maybe it's not CRISPR. It's not CRISPR, it's something else. Sorry, I'm getting things confused.
Great fact sheet out at the table across from registration, all on seeds. And we got a little
Okay.
chart that-
Okay. Oh boy, here I am, a seed grower. There are some things that are kind of like technology that are just emerging that I am learning about, and I don't know how they will incorporate into organic production. Hopefully at some point all will become clear. Okay, a little bit on some economics. Here on the left is a price list from a small seed company. They sell organic and non-organic seed. This is what the company pays me as a grower per pound for the seed that I grow. On the right is a price list from a conventional seed broker. This is the price list that a seed company could purchase conventionally grown seed for. These prices, when I saw this list on the right, I was very alarmed. I was just like, oh boy, how is anyone making any money selling broccoli seed at $4.65 a pound? It's clear to me that that is on a massive scale, even with a combine and very low wage labor. I still don't think that anyone could be making money doing that. This is part of the reason that we are certified organic, because we can sell our seed at a much higher price than conventional seed generally goes for. But I did want to talk a little bit about some of the drawbacks to being certified organic. There's a lot of paperwork. I think it was about 20 pages of paperwork to get started. There is record keeping, quite a bit of it. If we have time, I'm not sure if we will, I'd be happy to tour you through our spreadsheets. I love spreadsheets. In addition to growing seeds, I also love spreadsheets. There is some expense. It's on a sliding scale. I want to say it's at like 0.1. I don't remember what the percentage is that you pay, but you pay a certain percentage of your organic income for your certification, and then there is an inspection fee. But there is a cost share program, and we were able to get the cost of our organic certification refunded.
But in Washington State for 2025, we've secured state funds for all of our organic farmers, and so we have that that you can rest assured there will be.
All right, thanks Washington State. That's great.
Can we repeat what she said?
Oh, okay. You said that in Washington State,
We've secured state
We've-
cost money for 2025 for farms.
we've secured state cost share money for 2025 for farms. That's awesome. Thank you. Sounds like you're very knowledgeable. I'm glad you're here. Okay, yeah, emailing all of the forms as PDFs, that threw me for a loop when I first started. I was like, oh boy, how do I convert all of these things to PDFs? But I figured it out. It just took some doing. The mass balance, there's the mass balance exercise and the traceback exercise. And then there are these continually shifting regulations. Here's a chart of the fee chart. So you can see if you're bringing in $5 million, you're going to be paying $8,000 plus for certification. And if you're at our scale, which is tiny, you're going to be paying around $400 for certification. And then there's the inspection fee on top of that. Why is this required? Why is there so much paperwork? That's a great question for the certifiers. I'm going to do my best with this. There are bad actors who want to grow conventional crops and then sell them as organic. That's a bummer for everybody. It creates a lot of extra work. I wish that people wouldn't do that. And the certification process is, I think, everyone's best effort at making sure that doesn't happen, to make sure that there is some integrity to the word organic. It seems like whistleblowers are probably the best way to actually keep conventionally grown things from being marketed as organic, but I'm not sure. And yeah, it's a process. There are rules. It means something. Okay, and then how do we deal with it? How do we deal with the paperwork? We set aside one day to fill it out, a whole day. We start at the beginning. We go through it. If we hit a roadblock, we try to address that roadblock when it comes up, and then we start again where we left off. And we try to get to the end and submit it by the end of the day. We probably are going to make some mistakes, and someone from the WSDA will get back to us and say, this is what you did wrong. And then we do our best to address the things that we did wrong. I like working with the WSDA. I have found that they are good at communicating. They seem to have respect for the growers. It seems like there are quite a few people who work for WSDA who have been certified growers, which I think is helpful because they at least understand what the grower is going through other than just the paperwork end of things. Yeah, I try to keep an open line open with the certifier. Sometimes people at the WSDA make mistakes. If you think something is weird or like not right, it might not be right, and it's worth asking. There was some weird thing that happened with my certification. I can't remember the details, but I was like, ooh, that seems weird. That's like a lot of money I'm gonna have to pay to register these crops that I grew last year. And I called the WSDA and I was like, hey, this seems weird. And they corrected it and they said, yeah, you're right, that is weird, and we're not gonna charge you a whole bunch of money for those things you grew last year. So that was great, thank you. But yeah, keep that line of communication open. I think farmers can fall into a trap of thinking that the certifiers are like authority figures or I don't know, out to get you. Ooh, sorry. But they're just people trying to do their job, and they want to be able to work with other people who are also trying to do their job as best as they can. So keep that in mind as you're going through the process. It's tough. It'd be great to hear some other mistakes that folks have made. We have accidentally bought treated seed, and then we had to take a piece of ground out of certification for 3 years because we planted the plants grown with the treated seed. Check to make sure your seed isn't treated. Pressure treated lumber. We didn't use pressure treated lumber, but we didn't have a receipt for the lumber that we did use. If the lumber is touching the ground, we're talking like a high tunnel where there's a baseboard. Don't use pressure treated lumber and save your receipts for that lumber. We have a photo folder on our phones, and anytime we buy something for organic certification, we take a picture of the photo and we put it in the organic certification docs folder. So that's how we keep track of all of those receipts. And then poor record keeping. One time we sold some seed to Fedco and we didn't get paid for it until the following year, and we didn't go back and report that income to the WSDA just because of our bookkeeping system. And that was found on our audit, on our inspection. And I haven't actually done this yet, but we're supposed to get in touch with the WSDA and tell them that we actually made $8,000 more than we reported, and then they can adjust our fee based on that. So if you make a mistake, generally it's not the end of the world. You might have to take some ground out of production for 3 years. Has anyone else made mistakes on their certification? What, if you don't mind sharing?
One of them we had was we thought we had purchased some soil amendment that was organic, because that's what we had requested. And then when our inspector was there looking through the bags, like, wait a minute, this one looks different. So we looked at it. Thankfully, we'd only applied it in one small area, so there's one area that we let become a crop for a few years and then got it back.
Yep. Mistakes like that could be really expensive. And we've been lucky that those kinds of mistakes have not been very expensive.
So just to reiterate, to make sure that we pick it up, you said you used a soil amendment that was not certified, and so you had to put it into cover crop.
Correct. At least we had to take where we had applied it out of certification for the 3 years. So we chose to cover crop it.
Cover crop it and take it out of certification for 3 years. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else care to share? Love it. We all make mistakes. It could be expensive. Be careful what you're putting on your soil. Okay, oh yeah, so seed production. Our philosophy is to not use too much stuff. We try not to use too many inputs, and hoping that by not using too many inputs, we're selecting plants that are resilient to systems that don't require a lot of inputs. That also makes our organic certification a little bit easier because we don't have a whole bunch of inputs that we need to keep track of how much when we buy it and how much we use. Which it's like we get to select for resiliency and we get a little break on our certification. It's awesome. I understand that that's not possible for everyone, but that is part of our strategy. Yeah, production practices, less tillage, cover cropping, planting timing. We do our best to select varieties that are well adapted to our region. That is part of our business model as well. We're always looking for new things that will grow. We're always looking for open pollinated varieties that will grow well on the Olympic Peninsula and the Puget Sound region. If anyone is interested in learning more about our spreadsheets and record keeping systems, you can email me at saltwaterseeds@gmail.com. All right. Maybe we'll tour through the spreadsheets if anyone is interested at the end. I love spreadsheets. I'm going to hand it over to you. Thank you.
My name is Jordan Cohen, and I operate Hop Frog Farms in Onalaska, Washington. We're a certified organic microgreen and herb farm, and then we also run a certified organic creamery out of Chehalis, Washington. So I started off as an organic consumer. Buying, when I go to the grocery store, I just buy organic produce. It was a decision not just for personal health, but for environmental health, worker health. I wouldn't want to purchase a banana that I knew that I'm basically asking somebody to spray a toxic chemical on so that I can enjoy a banana. So I came into the organic movement as a consumer just as a way to have my dollars do good. You know, when I buy something, it was an ethical choice. As a farmer, I didn't see the value initially. I started off so I have a 10-acre, when I first started, I had a 10-acre off-grid homestead that I had a couple of greenhouses on, and I worked in Seattle one day a week as a bartender, and I would basically travel around the Puget Sound region from Seattle down into Lewis County, just marketing my produce. And I had a pretty extensive permacultural food forest, and so I had a lot of products to offer. And I just didn't see the value in being an organic farmer because I would deal directly with the people who were buying from me. So I can tell them my story. I could just say, oh, I don't use pesticides. You know, I grow things no-till. I use a lot of mulch, all that stuff. So there was a very direct connection to the consumers that I was dealing with. And so I didn't see the value in being an organic grower. That being said, my first foray into farming was an absolute disaster financially. I basically, at the end of the year, I think I made like $400 in profit for an entire year's worth of work. And when I did my accounting, it was a day in December on a Saturday, and I worked Saturday at the bar. I realized I made $400 for the entire year farming as a non-certified organic farmer. And then I made $500 that night slinging beers in Seattle, and I was like, why am I farming? So I said, I am never doing this again. There's better ways to make money, and there's better ways to just live your life, is what I was thinking. And so I gave it a rest for a couple of years. I still grew, I still sold reluctantly, but I didn't really drive all over the Puget Sound region trying to offer produce to co-ops and restaurants and just single CSA customers. And then in 2021, my neighbor, who owns a 220-acre organic dairy right next door to my farm, which is partially why I bought my 10 acres. It's because I wanted to live next door to organic farmland, and also so I could access organic manures for my gardens. So he comes to me and says, hey, I'm selling my dairy to a developer. We're going to put a housing development. And they were going to put this condensed cluster development on a hilltop that's surrounded by some massive salmon habitat. And on both sides, actually. So there's a huge beaver dam complex behind where they were looking to site the housing development. And then there's just all this, they have all these waterways running at the lower part of the farm. So it was just surrounded by water and salmon habitat. And there was 100 acres that was cut off by the beaver dams that had a lot of really, really nice, impressive forests too. And so the plan was to section it off and put 50 homes up there. Everybody gets 1 acre of good dry land, and then maybe a few acres to help offset the requirements for each home having the right amount of acreage in rural Lewis County. So and this is during the pandemic, I didn't have a job. I was living in my 1-room cabin without electricity. And I went to my neighbor and I said, hey, can I buy it? And well, he laughed in my face and told me to go buy a lottery ticket. And I said, well, just give me a month to figure something out. Can I have 30 days? And he said, sure, you can have 30 days, figure something out. So I just went down and I just started walking this farm, and I'm like, how am I gonna do this? Working 1 day a week as a bartender means that you don't really generate a good portfolio to go to a bank and be like, hey, can I get a loan for $2 million? So that wasn't an option, and he wouldn't let me till up his ground because he didn't have any faith in my ability to actually farm. So, but I needed to farm, I needed to start a farm because I needed to have access to those FSA loans for beginning farmers, because that was the only option for me to basically get the finances to help protect this acreage. So long story short, I just walked around and I saw the garage, and I had some experience growing microgreens in 2018, so I was just like, I'm gonna just have to convert this garage into a vertical farm. Thankfully, the farm was certified organic through WSDA, and so I got on the phone and I talked to their certifying agents, and they were really helpful in fast-tracking my application so that I could become a certified entity. And this was important because as I was walking the farm, I was looking at the guy who owned the land, and I'm like, how does he do this? Because whenever I go and see him, he gets up at noon, he's in his pajamas, he really doesn't he's not out there at the crack of dawn. And I was like, well, he's creating a commodity product, and then the trucks are coming in, the trucks are going out with the product, and then he's getting a check in the mail. And I'm like, I know that I can't do what I did before. I can't go to the farmers markets, I can't go to, I can't keep telling my story to every single person because I potentially need to come up with a couple of $1 million to help buy this place. So I was like, I need to come up with a commodity as well, but I only have the garage. And so I just looked to microgreens again. And so and the reason why I felt being certified organic was really important is because that seal is what is your marketing tool. Because now I can tap into those consumers who are using like the kind of how I was a consumer, like, oh, I want to buy organic, and so the organic seal was what was doing the marketing for me, because that's how I got in front of my customers. And then I was able to access a large account through PCC Natural Markets, and they were interested in not only the farmland conservation that I was vying for, but also just having a locally grown microgreen that was actually grown in Washington, closer to their stores. So that's kind of how that's one of the reasons why I chose to be organic. Talking with David when he was giving me the inspection, we felt like we came to a consensus as well that being organic is the right thing to do for the environment. It's the right thing to do for the people who work on your farm. You know, whenever I hire somebody, I tell them that I'm like, there's no chemicals here, so you don't have to worry about that. One of the workers that we just hired, her husband had cancer from working on conventional farms, and so I made sure, I told her, I said, there's no chemicals, you don't have to wear all your safety gear. You're here because, you know, we want you to be healthy. And I'm trying to condense why we're organic, and I mean, there's a lot of reasons, and I can go on for a while, but talking with Katie yesterday, one of the things that we do, or one of the things we don't do with our business, microgreens, there's a lot of health claims, and there's a lot of people who, you know, oh, if it's got 40 times more micronutrients than a full head of broccoli. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a nutritionist, so we don't use health claims when we're marketing our microgreens. We use recipes, we use pictures of, you know, what our grow looks like and what we're doing on the farm, but we don't talk about why you should consume it for health reasons. That's up to the consumer. But there are studies from the National Institute of Health that do talk about the health benefits of consuming microgreens. And we have customers in Seattle who buy massive quantities, single customers who buy massive quantities of our microgreens to manage their health crises. And so we choose, now we can get around it if seed isn't available, like David said, if seed isn't commercially available, we can buy conventional seed, but we choose not to do that because we know that people are buying this for health reasons. And like Katie said, these seeds are in the ground for a lot longer, and so there's more opportunity to spray them, and pesticides and fungicides and these things bioaccumulate on the seed and in the fatty portion of the seed itself. And then when you plant that in the soil and then grow it out, and then you harvest it in 2 weeks, you're basically, if you're not using organic seed, you're basically giving your customers who are thinking they're making a healthy choice a concoction, like just a poison pill in essence. And so that's another reason why we choose to maintain strict organic standards in our grow. So yeah. Well, I'll just give a little bit of an update. We weren't able to come to a full consensus on the purchase and conservation of the land, but we were able to buy 20 acres, which included all the house, the barns. We've got a series of grant opportunities. We're actually restoring this historic farm. We built a large series, we built several high tunnels. We're growing basil commercially from PCC markets as well. And we started the organic creamery because we wanted to start offering fresh cheese by buying milk from the farmer who we're trying to buy the land from, so that we are financially in tandem, in partnership, so that if we succeed, he succeeds. And then the purchase of the 20 acres gave him enough cash so that he pulled the rest of the farm off of the market. And when he is ready to sell, then we are coming up with a succession plan so that we can buy the rest of the land, put the conservation easements that it really needs, and then start working on restoring that salmon habitat. So.
Right on. Yeah.
So are there any questions before we maybe explore some spreadsheets?
exercise and the trace back. Oh, okay, yeah. She was asking about a couple of terms from organic certification called mass balance and trace back. Okay, we have our inspector in the room, so if I make any mistakes in explaining this, maybe he can correct me. Okay, trace back. When we harvest seed, we assign it a lot number. That lot number tells us which field it was produced in, the month it was harvested, and the year it was harvested, whether or not it was organic or not. We do have one field that's in transition. The field at my house is transitional organic. Any seed harvested off of that field is not organic. So we need to indicate that on our lot number. When we sell seed, we provide an invoice we provide a packing list to our customer that lists the lot number sold. In the trace back exercise, the inspector needs to see that packing list with the lot number on it, and then records showing what field that seed was harvested from, the date of harvest, the amount harvested, maybe not the amount harvested, and then some field map record showing that that seed was actually produced in that field. Am I getting that mostly right-ish?
So the traceback and mass balance audits are a way of verifying record-keeping systems. So with the traceback, it's a way of linking that specific sale back to when and where that crop was harvested from, back through each certified operations record-keeping systems, which are going to vary, obviously, in complexity and whatnot. So it's basically taking an outgoing sale and working back through those records with a linking element, in this case a lot number, which links one record back to the next record, forward or back, really, all the way back to when and where that crop was harvested from.
Okay, so that was a lot to repeat.
Yeah, I can repeat it. So
Okay.
trace back, essentially linking sales to the when and the where, like lot numbers, and then linking records together back to the very beginning. Okay.
And we do that with a lot number. I think that's kind of common, I'm not sure. The mass balance exercise is to try to keep people from growing conventional crops and then selling them as organic. And the way that manifests for us is we take a look at our records. The inspector chooses one thing and then says, okay, how much of this do you have? And we go and we get the bag of seed, we weigh it, and then we need to provide records of how much was harvested initially, and then records of all of the sales. So what they're looking for is, does this original harvest minus everything that was sold equal what is left? That might sound simple, but it is an incredible amount of record keeping because it's, they're randomly choosing which variety to audit, which means that we need to have all of those records for everything we produce, all 150 crops that we're growing this year, and all of the 150 crops we grew the previous year that we're still selling, and everything we grew the year before that we're also still selling. Seeds last for a little while. Which means that we need to have a record, like every time we make a little packet of cucumber seed and sell it to a store, we need to have a record of that and how much it weighed and how much it took out of that bag. Which might seem completely maddening, but honestly, it has improved our business. Now we have records of all of our sales of all of our products, who that's going to, which has helped us in figuring out how much we're going to grow in the future. It's helped us tremendously with sales predictions and crop planning. So it might sound like a nightmare, but it's kind of awesome, at least for our business. And if anyone is interested in learning more about how we track that, honestly, it's like partly Joanne's job and partly my job. So there are some parts of it that I know less about, but I'm more than happy to share what I know.
I didn't get your name when we shared the story, the dairy next to you, can you explain the process?
We're trying to record this, so we might ask folks to speak into a microphone.
Can you explain the process of acquiring those 20 acres, just a little bit more in detail, what that looked like?
Basically, so when I first started the conversation with FSA, I asked them, I said, how does it work to get a loan through you guys? And they said, we just generate a farm plan and we can base that, whether or not we're gonna make a loan to you based on that farm plan. And I said, well, what about microgreens? And he said, micro what? He's like, we do hay, we do beef, we do milk. We understand those commodities, but we don't understand microgreens. So I said, let me just what if I just built a revenue, like what if I just gave you my records for a year so you can see the business growth? And he said, that would work. So I basically just started farming and keeping records of the revenue that was coming in. And then once a certain time elapsed, I went to the FSA and applied for a loan. And it was a split loan with a conventional lender as well. Did that answer your question? Okay, cool. He gave a thumbs up.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
I was just curious, in terms of conventional versus organic farming, I think the stats is there's only 1%, around 1 to 2% of organic farms. I mean, the chart you showed based on the business sense, it really makes business sense to have organic, the prices you can get. So what do you think is the main, what's causing people not to transition when they can reach out, have access to better prices? There's benefits to your soil and all that. So what are the main barriers for farmers to transition?
I had some trouble understanding the question.
What are some barriers to transitioning?
For me or both?
For both, just in terms of general, why is there only 1% of organic farmers? Would it make sense that you get better prices, it's good for your land and all that good stuff?
Oh, okay. Why are there not more organic farmers? When I was a CSA farmer in Rhode Island, I was certified for a little while and then I dropped my certification because I didn't need it. I had personal relationships with my customers and my customers trusted my growing practices, and we planted that treated seed and had to take that little piece of ground out of production for 3 years. I also went to an NOP meeting and the NOSB meeting. I went to an NOSB meeting many, many years ago. I saw that the folks on the board were executives from Driscoll's and Earthbound, and I was like, this has nothing to do with me. And I dropped my certification. It's very possible that other farmers have similar motivations for dropping their certification. The paperwork, I'm sure, is a hindrance. What else? What are some other reasons people? Probably organic farming is harder. I don't know. I don't think it is. I think it's easier personally, and yeah, you get better prices. I don't know. What do you think?
As far as barriers to Personally, didn't see any, and I know that I'm in I feel like I'm in a privileged position because that was one of the assets of the property that I was trying to buy was already certified organic, except for the 120 square feet of ground that I wanted to actually farm wasn't certified, but it was surrounded by all of the certified organic farmland. And I thought I would literally actually have to pick up the building and move it and put it on a field where it was certified. But thankfully, because we are on a concrete pad, we were eligible to just transition that concrete floor into organic production. So I didn't have any barriers. I basically was able to get my business certified organic in just a couple of months.
Does anyone in the audience want to field that question?
One of the things that's somewhat linked to that, we're certified organic at our farm. When our inspector was there just this last time, she mentioned that she kind of enjoyed doing the inspection at our farm because she didn't get the sense that we were being antagonistic. Where a lot of places she would go to do an inspection, she felt like the farmer was really like defensive and almost not necessarily trying to hide, but waiting for her to really pull out any information. And what she mentioned was that she's there because she's asked to go. The farm asked for her to come do the inspection. It's not like she's intruding on the farm doing the inspection. So I think that can be one of the things, if you keep in mind, if you're asking for that organic inspection, they're trying, they want you to succeed. They want you to become an organic certified farm. They're not trying to find a reason that you can't be. They're trying to help you become a certified farm. So I think that's kind of a roundabout way to get back to what you're asking, what would be some of the barriers. I think the main barrier for most of the farmers that I talk to is just one more thing. I mean, farmers have so many things that they're dealing with, especially as you're trying to start a farm. And if you're like, well, what can I cut out so I can just focus on my core things that I need to do? Cutting out the organic might be one of those things, like you mentioned, that if you already know who you're going to sell to and you're doing the direct marketing, customer knowing their farmer is probably more important than seeing that organic stamp. From our experience, though, what we found is it's easier to become organic certified if you do it right up front, because otherwise, as you try to transition to it later, now you've got to look for those 3 years worth of records to link it all up, or otherwise you're going to be at least having to wait 3 years while you're transitioning. So that would be my pitch, to maybe do it at the beginning, because the record keeping is always going to be a pain, but it's easier if you start it from the beginning rather than having to look back 3 years to find it.
Yeah, right on.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Yeah. All right. Got a question?
Sure. Yeah. So I guess I wanted to go back to the process of buying the dairy because, like I've heard that these FSA loans take like 6 months to get through or this kind of thing. And like, how long were you able to do the microgreens? Like, how long did you have to do the microgreens to show business records that showed that you would be able to have a business that would be viable on the 20 acres? And then how long did it take to, get through that whole loan process?
I think the loan process, it took about 4 months. Okay. And we had I'm just trying to think. When I did talk to the FSA agent about future purchase, 60 days could be, we tried to get a first right of refusal on the rest of the land, and so we put in a 60-day clause in that first right so that could give us enough time to come up with the funding to buy the other 200 acres.
And so how long did you have to do the microgreens business to be able to have enough business records to show them, to prove to them that you would be able to? Our initial plan was we had it's a little complicated and it's a unique situation because the land is so ecologically diverse. I approached it initially from a three-pronged perspective where I needed 3 funding sources to buy the whole thing. And so there was farmland, there was extensive salmon habitat, and then
So I reached out to a farmland conservation organization, and then I reached out to Ducks Unlimited, because they do a lot of really important conservation work in Washington, well, throughout the nation. And so I was hoping that we could attack this large-scale purchase with a three-pronged approach, where we have conservation dollars coming in from like wildland conservation, we have farmland conservation dollars, and then I was hoping that my business could contribute an equal third so that we could buy the whole thing. And so we went through this long process to get a Yellow Book appraisal, and because it works on a biennial cycle, so that it only happens on the even years, so the next opportunity to buy farmland through these easements through like a farmland conservation organization would have had to have happened in 2022, and we started in January of 2021. So I had a whole year to wait, and the landowner was willing to wait as well. And so I had a year to build those finances, build the accounts through PCC, selling at one store, then 2 stores, and 6, 11, and 16 stores. And so I had time on my side. It wasn't like it was an urgent sale, like this needs to go through right now. If that was the case, I probably never would have been able to acquire any of that acreage.
Can I ask a further question? And so then did you end up, now you're operating the dairy?
I'm not operating, well, I have 20 acres of the dairy, which is it's got the house, the historic barn, it's got a milk parlor, and some pastures as well. But we have a creamery. We're not producing any milk. We're buying milk from the original owner. And so we're like, we'll keep buying milk at an elevated price, more than he can get from Organic Valley or Dairy Gold. And then, so we're giving him more per hundredweight than he would get from like a commodity company. And then we're building a value-added product, and we're looking for customers as well. So we only have a couple of customers right now. We sell to the Olympia Food Co-op and Sam and Mary Goods, and a sandwich shop in Chehalis. But so if anybody needs cheese, let me know.
Okay, we're going to do one more question, and then we're getting close to time. So while the question's being answered, I'm going to pass out evaluations, and then we're going to have a little plug about some organic office hours.
I was wondering if you could talk more about the organic cost share program. I don't really understand how it all works.
I can take that.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Brenda Book.
WSDA Organic.
Hi y'all, I'm Brenda Book. I'm the program manager for WSDA's organic program. Thank you all for being in these sessions. Thank you for these 2 producers for being such great advocates for certification. They're really doing some amazing things, and I encourage you to go talk to them individually because they're taking advantage of all those resources that are there for them. So one of those resources is cost share. There's a USDA cost share program that's in place right now. That deadline, it's a cycle, and so it goes from payment. If you have, let me back up here. The current cycle is if you have made payments towards certification and you achieve certification between October 1st, 2023 and September 30th, 2024, then you can qualify for this cycle of cost share. You can get up to $750 back in that process. You get 75% up to $750. But that deadline, officially our forms say that deadline is Friday. We're extending that if you're a WSDA certified operation, or if you are an organic operation just in Washington State and you haven't applied for cost share for this cycle, you can contact specifically Pyong right here. And we have application forms out at our office hours table, which is right across from registration. But to take advantage of this cycle, we're on a fast timeline here. We're anticipating that the program will be in place again next year because it's been in place pretty consecutively since 2004. But like I mentioned, there's also a statewide cost share that we're putting in place for operations in Washington State specifically. And there'll be more information out this winter about that process. Does that answer your question? Okay. While I have the mic, I'm just going to do a quick plug. We have that resource table out, and specifically, we've got bigger table than other trade show booths. We're out there in reception. We have space where you can come and sit down with one of our staff. We've got 7 of us here this week, or this weekend. And you can ask questions about the certification process. You can pull up on our computer. We can show you all the different resources we have available. And then there's also another really great resource table inside the trade show. Oregon Tilth is sponsoring a top transition to organic producers program table where you can get more information on a bunch of different resources, and especially if you're an Oregon farmer, I encourage you to go to that table because we can't offer you certification by WSDA.
While we're plugging things, I want to plug the Organic Seed Growers Conference that's going to be in Corvallis at the end of February. Organic Seed Alliance has put that on for a bunch of years now, and it was online, or it was virtual the last time it happened, so this is the first time it will be in person since the pandemic. I'm really excited about the conference. Hope to see you there.
If you have any questions, feel free to come up and ask them or figure out a time when you can come and ask them. But yeah, please, round of applause for our speaker.